Oh, it was
That's
it
a
was
real sign
precious.
of being a hick like us, right? This guy.
Just
Oh my
one
God,
of
this guy.
those things, you know.
Yep.
Is Shutesbury first called road?
They dug a road. They made a
Actually
road down
paid
to the
people to-
Connecticut River.
They paid people to move here.
Really?
Don't they? No.
That's why I think that's why my aunt stayed in Alaska for so long, was because, oh, I gotta change the camera, was because the oil.
Hi, everyone.
All right, so I have to do something with my camera
No problem. Here.
to set the owl. Hold on.
Pennsylvania down the road from me, but she moved to Alaska in her, I don't know, she was in her 30s, I guess. I kept coming back and then going back to Alaska like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, my grandmother's sister went there for a state to visit the East Coast, but. All right, let's see, video.
Oops.
Blank piece of No, I'm pictures. I still use pencil paper.
I did today at work. I just couldn't.
It was one of the places where I was working. The woman who owned the places, a few years older than I am, but
Many, most of the employees were like in their 20s or 30s. You know. They were in the branches, all the rest of them were using the computers. How does that work to take this like that? No, like,
Integrated camera. I don't want the integrated camera. All right. Hang on. I think it's best at on my.
I'm gonna go grab a pen.
Just gotta tell it.
Speaking of manual entry.
All right, I'm going out. And I'm gonna come back in. Left. My camera set. Oh, come on.
Here we go, you're close.
No, she doesn't.
So is there,
Nope, it's nothing you're gonna have to get this. I have to get it.
okay.
Nothing you've done.
Oh,
Get to let me in.
oh my goodness. Sorry.
Self-respecting, that might be the problem.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Co-host.
No, look up to the color, so it should be- It's not on.
Is the owl not plugged in? Oh, I bet it's turned off. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, some basic technology.
Turn on the on button.
Okay, hang on one moment. We just had to turn on the on button.
That's the owl.
Okay. Can someone on screen say something?
Mike, could you say something?
Are you muted?
He's trying to. I had to. Sorry, I
Sorry, I had my audio off. What did you want?
could you, she just wanted you to speak. Thank you.
Set up.
Hold on. Down.
Melissa has
Mute
control.
yourself. Mute yourself. And mute your speakers.
I muted my speaker.
Can someone say
Allow
something
them.
on the screen? I'll put them up so you guys.
Hello.
Okay, I think we solved our problem. Sorry about
Sorry
that.
about that.
Okay, so sorry about the delay. Get my mouse back. So let's open the meeting at 5:52 and review the agenda. So far on the agenda, we have brief public comment, review minutes of our last meeting on November 29th, review the proposed log spreadsheet, review the budget history, and then survey updates with our latest draft. Thank you, Carol. And then schedule our next meeting and adjourn. Anybody have any?
I'm sorry, did you mention going over the spreadsheet?
I did.
Okay.
Right
I-
after the
Somehow or
minutes.
other, I was off in space
Yes,
somewhere.
That was the first item after the.
This first item.
Okay.
And so that's, anybody have any, okay to take it in order? Any thoughts of changing order? Any thoughts at all?
I mean, that was my thoughts over here.
I just, Melissa, I just have a quick comment. The audio from those of you at Town Hall is sometimes it's hard to hear you, and it's especially noticeable on the recording that is made of the meeting. Playing that back, there's a lot of times where the voices are rather muffled, and it's especially difficult to hear when there's like side conversations going on in the room there and everything like that. So I just want to pass that to everybody so that maybe you can just make sure you're close to the microphone and just to avoid having multiple people speaking at the same time. That would be great.
Do you currently hear any background noise right now?
No, now, now there's no reverberation or any background noise or anything like that. But mostly I was referring to just the level of the audio that's coming from, from you guys there in Town Hall.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the dehumidifier and air exchanger wasn't bothering, the air exchanger wasn't bothering the background. The thing we have that runs.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Shall we open it up for brief public comment?
There's no public, nobody.
There's no public. Oh my goodness. Okay. Not seeing any public, or does any one of us have public comment they'd like to? No? All right. Let's review the minutes of November 29th. Mike, thanks for putting those together for us.
Yeah, Mike, did you get my comment? Did you get my response to your question? Too late. Sorry about that. About
Yes, I had already sent the draft out when I got your email, and I did it the way I stated it. Was that okay?
because we did not have a subgroup meeting in between. I just made it go from version 3 to version 4 based on comments in the full meeting.
Okay, so yeah, basically I said, so it was the result of comments that the group made at the last meeting and you did the editing on those. That sound reasonable?
The last full meeting, not the last meeting of the complete group, not the subgroup, not Mary Jo and Melody and me. It was comments from the whole group.
Okay, I'm just gonna change it to the last police study group meeting then, I'll add that into the description.
Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, I thought they were good.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Now we can have discussion. And a second?
Second. Sorry.
I'd like to, I forgot something that I wanted to add, and at one point, Melody asked if we were looking for a minimum number of responses, and I forgot to put that aspect in there. So I wanted to basically just add that Melanie asked that question, and then Cheryl replied that we would expect 20 to 30% return. Less than 20% is not a representative sample, and this is a self-collected sample, so it won't be representative of the entire town. Does that make sense?
That's an accurate response to, that accurately states what my response was, yes.
Okay, all right, so I'd like to add that. And then there's one thing I wanted to clarify, and that was, we were talking about a lot of towns around are getting together with each other for, you know, policing type needs and things like that. And Becky said that there is that Shutesbury has reached out to New Salem regarding policing, and that New Salem has started a policing review, much like what we're doing, and that Shutesbury has met with New Salem in August of 2021. Is that correct? I was trying to find any reference to a meeting of Shutesbury with New Salem about policing, and I couldn't find anything anywhere. So I'm not sure if I heard that incorrectly or what, you know, what was going on with that.
We did meet with them. It was Kristen and I and Becky with their select board. We attended their meeting. It wasn't a select board meeting with their select board.
Yeah. They invited us to a select board meeting.
Okay, all right, so I'm just going to add that it was a meeting at New Salem Select Board.
At their request, really.
At their request.
Okay, okay, and that was all I had.
Good. Ready to take a look.
Okay. All those, was there any other edits or discussion on the minutes? Okay, all those in favor of approving them as amended?
Can we just raise our hands?
No, we gotta have it recorded,
Do
sorry.
you want to review what the changes are for Rita?
Oh, Rita, yes, we can review what the changes were. There was a comment that Cheryl had made related to the number of responses that came in. Under 20% would be representative of town, and we have amended that portion of the minutes. The one prior to that, Mike, you had mentioned, and I'm sorry, I have now.
It was how version 4 evolved from version 3.
Yes, of the survey.
And it was due to comments here in the group, the full group meeting.
And then we added a bit of information for background to the New Salem meeting that was referenced in the meeting last time. There wasn't a great deal of information that was given, but we just kind of gave the background of it being in August and wasn't a full select board and full select board meeting in New Salem. It was Kristen, me, and Becky.
Met with the New Salem Select Board.
And I think that was it. Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, you'll send them around again with the edits in there.
Yeah, do you want me to just make those corrections? Well, if we vote to approve it as amended, then I'll make those corrections and I will send it to everybody as the approved minutes then. Is that what you'd like?
Yes, that works. Yep.
Okay, all right.
So all those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, roll call vote. I'll do the video first. Melody.
Chartier, aye.
Mike.
Pinsky, aye.
Rita didn't hear you.
Rita.
She's
Oh,
been
aye, sorry. I was changing my name.
Mary Jo.
Johnson, aye.
Becky.
Nope.
Oh, no, you're not. I'm sorry.
Mosier, aye.
Susie. Cheryl.
Hayden, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Thank you, Becky. And Kristen, you have Kristen not here on this set of minutes, right, Mike, for this week's meeting?
Yes.
Did you-
I hadn't yet. Kristen isn't attending tonight because she it was not feeling well and she had a long day yesterday as well.
Yesterday was basically a double shift, and she has the Bridge Academy firing range drills all day tomorrow and Saturday, and outdoors, so she needs, yeah, and not, I want to make sure she was feeling well for those 2 days. So she will not be able to be here tonight, but she will be reviewing everything that happens on the video.
So the next item on the list is to review the proposed police log spreadsheet.
Okay, I've sent this twice. I hope everybody has it. Of course, can I bring my copy? I did not.
Would you like to read over? Can you put it up on screen?
I can if I can find it. Give me a second.
You give this to-
Thank you. If I'm not going to bring my computer because it weighs a ton. Pretty old. I should remember to bring everything I need.
I know I have.
Yeah.
They had the survey up first.
Police log spreadsheet. Does October 28th sound about right?
There was a new one recently sent, right?
It's just,
Oh, November 29th.
yeah,
Yep, I got it.
they're the same. I just sent it out twice because people couldn't find it. This has this is cut off at the top. Is that assistance? It should be total assistance. Here.
All right.
Printer problems.
Yeah.
All right, so I have it up on my screen. I'm going to share my screen with the group. Right. Screen. This one. Yeah. Taking it away from myself.
Well done.
Yeah.
Tricky part.
This one, no one wants to see that. All right, so can you guys see that on your screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Hold on one second now, just launch it. There, good,
Mhm.
because we can't see it on the screen. We have to. I'm gonna bring you guys up so we can see this. Okay. All right.
Okay, so I met with Kristen, seems like ages ago now. And she helped me to categorize all of the subgroupings into the larger groupings, the ones that I couldn't figure out for myself. And what you see here in capital letters are the larger groupings that we came up with, and in the lowercase letters are what was grouped into those. Those are the headings that were in the original data that she gave me, and this is how we grouped them so that we could make a little more sense out of them. The first one is assistance. I don't know that we need to go through all of these, but
The first one here is admin.
oh, then I don't have all the, I don't have the first sheet.
9/11.
Yeah,
Are they
my
in
first
wrong
page
order?
didn't print.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Here, no, I can. I'll check.
I didn't bring computer glasses either.
You need it
It's not that. The
further away.
top part, no, the top part is blurry and the bottom part is, I think, have to be closer. There
I'm
we
gonna
go.
make a copy for you.
As close as she can. She can use mine.
Okay, first is 9/11, which is obvious. It's anytime somebody calls 9/11, it's amazing to me that there are abandoned calls there, but evidently that's not so unusual. And there's not very many of those. I was surprised at how few there are each year.
And that goes to Shelburne?
Yeah. Evidently, most people who call the police here in Shutesbury call a regular phone number. Anyway,
We haven't always had 911.
everybody's had to have it for at least 10 years. At least. Anyway, admin has only been collected since 2018, and there was hardly any there in 2018. But it has gone up dramatically. Of course, 2021 is only the first 7 months, so you can't really look at that number compared to earlier numbers. But you can see that there are 165, something in the neighborhood of 150 to 160 episodes of doing administrative work, which makes me wonder if the police department couldn't use a part-time administrative assistant.
So for that screen, so pull it this side. There you go. There you go. There's it.
Oh, okay. Next is animal. We don't have very many of those. Assistance is one of the interesting things that you can see. There's a lot of times when the police are called out, when it's just to assist someone, it's not that there's any crime happening but it's just someone needs some help and the police is who they call. And I think Kristen has said that a number of times, that that's really one of their major activities here. And you can see it covers a lot of things. Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, it's much easier. And again, you can see that over the last 3 years, that has increased quite a bit. In 2018, there were only 55 calls for assistance, whereas in 2020, there were 119, so doubled in that, over that 2-year period. Actually, doubled in a 1-year period. Community policing, we only included 2 things in this. And it's interesting that has also increased in the last 3 years, but it's only been, they've really only been collecting information, calling it community policing for the last 3.5 years.
And just to add in there, I think it's because the select board had started to have that as a focus of
Ah,
of new hires and such too. So I think that may have played a role in it.
yeah, that's one of the things that Kristen and I talked about, but we didn't try to do anything about how things are getting coded differently over the years, and we didn't try to make things mesh. We just listed whatever we found. Complaints, there's only one thing under complaint, and that has also increased over the last 3 years. I'm not quite sure what complaint means. Does it mean complaint about the police department or complaint about your neighbor, or that wasn't explained.
Can you scroll down?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, thank you.
There's the things that are associated with the court are, besides having to go to court, there's serving a warrant and summons service. There's not a whole lot of that and hasn't changed much.
That could be COVID affected. The court slowed down.
Yeah, but the numbers are so low that you can't make any assumptions when the numbers are that low. Crime NOS means that it wasn't, we don't know whether it was crime against a person or crime against property. NOS, by the way, stands for not otherwise specified. And there's hardly any of those. A crime against a person, I was again surprised at how few there are. It bounces around a little bit, but again, the numbers are so low that it's really hard to make any conclusions.
Did in that category, did Kristen define that as someone who was arrested because of a crime or convicted because of a
No,
crime?
no,
Or
no,
just-
this
okay.
is just any calls they
Okay.
got about it.
You keep scrolling?
Crime against property was one that there was quite a bit more, well, twice as much as persons, still not a whole lot. We do live in a very nice town, don't we? Again, that hasn't changed over 6 years, except for the COVID year, 2021, it's way down. People aren't walking about and taking stuff, I guess.
A quick question. I have a quick question on that crime property, the alarm burglar or holdup is there a way to tell if those were false alarms or actual burglaries going on or anything like that?
I have no idea. All I did was to record what was in the data set that she gave me. And we didn't talk about things. I mean, she just didn't have time to talk about each individual thing. So, you know, if she were here, we could ask her that question, but I can't answer it.
Okay.
Cruiser maintenance is interesting. In 2019, there was 3 times as much as the previous year and the following year, and twice as much, more than twice as much. Oh, never mind, that's 2020, so we don't know yet how much. So it seems to jump around. Maybe it depends on whether we have new cars or old cars. Fire, there's not a whole lot of fire, and it hasn't changed much over 7 years. Guns, there's been an increase over the last 3 years, but that's in licensing, not in shots fired. And I think that's only been the last 3 years that the police chief has been doing it. No? Well, they've only reported it over the last 3 years.
Well, the chief would do, I mean, the old chief had a sergeant who did the licensing.
Yeah, but it should have been reported.
Right.
So they just weren't reporting it evidently. Investigations. It's interesting. There were 72 in each of 2015 and 2016, and then it's decreased since then. Who knows why? Maybe they're just calling things a different thing.
I'm sorry, which kind of,
Investigation.
But there's been a decrease in some of the areas that there would be investigation, like property crime down.
And if you add the follow-up investigation to the investigation, the numbers are more equal.
Follow-up investigation is under investigation.
Okay, I'm just saying, looking at the top two categories.
They are all added up. That's what total
Yeah.
investigation is.
Well, they must, so you're going back to 2015 and 16.
Yeah, and investigation is a follow-up to any other thing that's going on.
Yeah.
It's just, it's recorded because it's something that they spend a fair amount of time on. Medical, there's not a lot of them, but enough so that it is a significant service that the police offer. But it hasn't changed over the 7 years. Miscellaneous is put the figure anyplace else to put it, so it doesn't really mean much.
Do you know if the medical, are those in conjunction with fire department responding, or is this strictly where the police respond to a medical and the fire department doesn't show up or anything? Do you have any information about that?
Police are usually the first ones on scene, and then Walter's the next, or the fire department's the next one.
And then the
on scene,
ambulance.
And then the
usually.
ambulance.
But police is usually there faster because Walter has to go to the station and change into a different vehicle. And all the firefighters have to go to the station first and are deployed from there. Police get here at the same time as fire and can go straight to the incident. So they're almost always first.
Are they first aid trained?
First responder.
Yes, they're all, the police have the same training for first response as the firefighters. They are all trained at the same level. And what Walter explained, even if you're an EMT or a doctor and have a higher level of training, you are restricted to the first responder level of response.
Really?
So if we're looking at the fire department responses, they should mirror this then, right? They should,
Might be, it could be even more if they respond in the middle of the night or because the chief is on call 24/7. Walter responds 24/7, and if it's not, he would,
Right.
the police wouldn't always be called in.
right, okay, I got it.
It'd be good to compare.
It would be good.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It's mutual aid is interesting. This is where the Shutesbury police are called in to assist another agency, usually one of the surrounding towns' police. And that has increased quite a bit this year over the last years where it was level. It will be interesting to know why that is the case.
I know they go to Wendell.
Do they?
They've been, Leverett's called them into Wendell a number of times.
I thought Leverett was supposed to respond to Wendell.
They do, but
Oh,
if they've often called Shutesbury in as well.
Do you happen to know what towns we have mutual aid with? Does anybody know that?
I don't think it's restricted.
Well, at this point, I believe there's a Western Mass mutual aid agreement in place. When Tom Harding came in like 20 years ago, we did all the surrounding towns. I don't know, but then there was an effort to do with all of Western Mass that went through.
Well, I know recently Kristen was in Amherst, so that's not a surrounding town. We border them.
It's a surrounding.
And it's a
We border
Western.
Amherst?
Yes.
We do touch.
Yeah, that's why we're in the same regional school district as Amherst.
Oh, okay.
It's a very small board.
Yes.
So
Not like.
I-
Wendell.
Oh, the whole,
So
down by
it's
Atkins,
definitely
Doesn't
within-
border-
down by Atkins down.
No, it's not like the border we share with them.
Oh,
So Wendell, New Salem, I think there's an overlap with Pelham and certainly Leverett. But I think it's like the fire, if there's a tone that goes out and they need the help, they go. When we had a fire here in town, we had 7 towns that appeared to fight fire. So I think it's a little bit similar in that way. If they need the help, they go.
And it depends who's on duty. I mean, what towns have officers on duty? I remember Dan commenting, being on a Sunday, that he was the only officer in 9 towns around us. So that's, sometimes the mutual aid gets spikes when other towns don't have as many officers on.
So I've got a question that I thought at some point in our discussion, we were talking about the fact that each town needed to have some sort of a mutual aid agreement with another town. And, there's talk about formalizing mutual aid agreements. So is that not valid? I mean, from what I'm hearing right now, it sounds like if a call goes out for assistance, whoever hears it and is available from whatever town they're at is gonna come. Is that, is that correct, or do I have the wrong impression here?
I think the law changed, so they have the right to go into other towns and respond. But we do have more structured mutual aid agreements with surrounding towns. I don't think we have one with Amherst. We have one for fire, but I don't think police. Yeah, but the state law changed about 5 or 6 years ago, I think, and kind of opened up the borders, because it used to be if Kristen was driving through Amherst on her way home and she was at the scene of an accident, which occurred last night, she could not have responded, but she saw the accident occur and was able to get out of her car and assist all the parties because of the law change they made. And then, turn over the scene to the Amherst police when they arrived.
So is there a mutual agreement on file here somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a number of them,
Maybe
and
we
we can
should
ask Kristen to go through that aspect with us at the next meeting, instead of guessing anymore. I know there's a number of official ones that have been in place for a long time, and then we have the law change, which makes it possible for a Massachusetts municipal officer to respond. So we'll just have Kristen give us the full answers to your questions, Mike. Okay.
Do we have any data on the other towns that come and assist Shutesbury? Is that I don't know, Cheryl, if you've seen that, is that part of the responses?
There was nothing like that in the data set that I had.
Okay.
Okay, next is motor vehicle, and as you can see, that is the majority of what the police do, but it covers a lot. Traffic control is a very small part of it. Traffic radar enforcement is a larger part of it, but still not the majority by any means. I'm not quite sure how motor vehicle violation is different from traffic control, but
I think that is my guess, and Kristen would know, I think that is what precedes a stop, like someone's violated traffic law, and so they either
but then
speeding, or their light was out, or their registration was, those things.
okay, so an interesting question then would be, is a single incident reported here more than once, like as the violation, and then?
No, traffic control is what the police did at annual town meeting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's when they are,
Mhm.
controlling the traffic,
But-
the flow of traffic.
But
The
radar traffic enforcement, I would think, would be similar to motor vehicle violation if the
No,
violation.
because there might not be any violations. So what they're doing is they're sitting out on the road, like across from the common, and monitoring, with their radar gun out.
So that they're just sitting there and not doing anything, and then if they stop, it gets put under sufficient, well, whatever.
Their presence does something.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so it's just, you have to
No
be careful
argument,
with your language there.
no argument,
Okay.
no argument at all.
They're showing the flag.
Well, and, that's a discussion that I had with Kristen, and I think you all saw that pie chart that I made, and it showed that more than half of the, whatever we want to call these, incidences or times, whatever they're calling them, more than half of them are for motor vehicle, and another large portion are for a combination of things. Well, no, actually, we're just for prevention. We'll get to that in a minute. So that something like 60% of that pie chart was essentially preventive behavior, which to me is so, it just exemplifies exactly what our police department should be doing. They should be preventing bad things from happening and not just responding to bad things that happen. So I thought that pie chart was great. Kristen hated it. Anyway. She thinks that
There's sometimes when you see a pictures, I think where she was coming at it was the picture wasn't representing this data. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it was and it seemed simple. Is my guess, because that's what it seemed like to me. I'm not a pie chart person. I don't like pie charts myself. I
yes,
like
but
data,
what
but
it
that's just.
does is give you an idea, visual. It visually helps you understand where most of the effort is going, which I think is really important. And she complained that it watered it down because then people couldn't see what was happening. But very few people are going who don't have intimate idea of what the police do are going to understand 90% of the things that are on here. You need to group things together for people to get an idea.
But it depends how few groupings you make, and I think that's what she was
No,
frustrated
she
with.
didn't like even these.
She's not
groupings.
here. I prefer not to.
Yeah, we'll
Go
reach out
on.
her, we can ask her.
Right. Okay, so officer wanted, there's not very many, and I guess it's just somebody calls, and I don't know why that's not under assistance, but anyway, there are, oh no, she explained that. Officer wanted is,
When they've asked an officer to be in person.
oh, I don't remember now what she said. Anyway, so let's not talk about that one. Paperwork service. And she explained that to me also, and I don't understand why that's different than what goes on in court. She explained it to me, and I don't remember. But it's also not a huge, it's a very small piece of that's going on. I like the peacekeeping. I wish we had more things under peacekeeping. Not very much in there. But you can see prevention is really the largest part of the effort put in by our police department. And a lot of that is like a building check or just patrolling the area. Just, between showing up and being there and then looking at things that just don't look right. I think they do a tremendous amount to not just keep us safe, but also make us feel comfortable in this town. At least that's what I get out of that. And the same thing's true of safety. There's not a lot of it, but what's there is really important.
Can you go back to that prevention one again? So when these are logging numbers of instances of, say, like the patrol area. So what what is a patrol area? Is that like one circuit around town, or I'm trying to get an idea. I mean, I understand they're doing a lot of different things, but I'm trying to get a feel for how much of their day is taken up with these things. So you know, when you say they've logged X number of patrol areas, I mean, can you knock that out in, in an hour, or is that a half day process to do a patrol area, or what, what does, what sort of a time frame are we looking at with those?
I asked Kristen if there was any way we could get hours associated with these numbers, because that would be more meaningful. She says that is not recorded, so we can't do that. So I can't answer your question.
Well, one of the areas that into this, and again, she's not here, would be the lake. And so, you know, it's not-
No.
patrol
This doesn't
area.
mean patrol area. That doesn't mean an area to be patrolled, but that means that they are patrolling the area.
I understand that, and the lake is a pretty dynamic area, and I know they go down there to be visible and to talk to DCR and stuff like that. So I imagine we have, that's probably the most active area in the town.
That's maybe the school.
And, yeah, and the bus routes
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Well, Shirley, your comment about the data as far as time is concerned isn't available. I've talked with Paul Latch, who's retired police officer, and he's got a little bit of experience with this. He says the data is available from dispatch. It's just the means of getting it off their computer. So I'll mention it now, but I think that's something that I'd like to talk to Kristen about.
Michael, we've already talked about this. It's not available. It may be available for dispatch, but dispatch is a total of 35 times during the year. So for 35 calls, you might be able to get hours. For the other 1,500 things, we have no hours. They don't record it.
Okay, there's two separate things going on. What what dispatch would have is the sign in and the sign out time for each officer. That's not going to tell you how they spent each part of, those hours during the day. They also log activity. All this data that Cheryl has compiled has come from dispatch, but it's not broken down into how, 45 minutes or 15 minutes.
And
At
the
a time.
other part too is Paul's experience was at UMass, where they have to have billable hours to be audited for grants and such that they're given and donations that they're given. So that they also have to track it in a way that they can account for the dollars spent in an audit. So it's a very different type of situation, I think, on a college campus than it is in a municipal or other type of situation.
And they do, the officers call into dispatch when they go on a specific, call, like when dispatch calls them, but out of an 8-hour day, they're not going to account for every hour of that day. So if there is a burglary in process and an officer gets called, that time can be logged from when it starts, and then they can report, when they're complete, but it might not be complete in that shift. And then they'll sign out of that shift. So it's not exact, I don't think what Paul is describing applies here.
I'll check with them and clear it up a little bit.
I would, since we're on the topic of hours recorded, there may be another time that we discuss this, but I'm just wondering what goes into the calculation of FTE required for police in our town. And if we don't really have a sense of how much time is being spent on various activities, how do we come to understanding of how many police officers we should have on duty? I'd like to have an answer to that question. Not necessarily tonight. I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
Have the data to answer that question.
What, Cheryl, what did you say again?
We don't have the data to answer that question.
Well, at some point, I think that concept is important to understand because, you know, we often hear that, you know, Manning and Shutesbury is below what it should be, or, you know, trying to get it back up to a level that it should be. And so the question is, well, how did you determine what that level should be? I think it's a very valid question that Mary Jo is bringing up.
I agree. That's why I asked Kristen if we could get hours, and she said that we just don't have that information. If we want to get that information, we are going to have to ask every person who is on patrol to keep a log of what they do and the time they put in. Now, is that something we want our police spending their time on? That's more administrative stuff. I don't know.
There may be a way, yeah, and maybe it's pulling the number of hours from timesheets to get something together. I'm not sure it's going to tell us what they're spending on each topic, but it would, the man hours would at least be accounted for in that way, right? Except for the chief, 24 hours, you wouldn't have that information on chief. 'Cause
Well,
they
I just,
might-
you know, again, it's, you know, I think I've heard somewhere along the line that, you know, the goal is to have 3 full-time officers and then, you know, additional part-time officers to fill in. So how was 3 full-time officers determined to be the amount that we need? I mean, somewhere along the line, someone must have done some analysis of times and hours to come up with that. And that's, you know, that's, you know, I think it's something that we need to know about and understand.
Go ahead, I think.
So another piece is like what anybody's understanding of full-time officers is. And we know that they want to have coverage from 7 in the morning till 11 at night, 7 days a week. And I believe that part of the scheduling is to cover that. And maybe, and there's always some overlap when, or they try to make overlap so that people can talk to each other. But it doesn't mean that there's 3 officers running around full-time in Shutesbury from 7 to 11. So she could make a simple breakdown of what the coverage means. And this is not only this officer or this chief, this has been going on. And so I have a feeling, but we can get more information, but this is a version of how you have enough police officers around to respond to things over the course of 7 to 11, 7 days a week.
So just doing quick math, because I just did, it's a 16-hour, say it's 16 hours a day for 7 days a week, and you divide it by 40, that's almost 3 people working 40 hours a week with no overlap.
So I think there's 2 different issues that we're talking about at the same time that don't really agree with each other. I think the FTE, we are talking about the 7 to 11 p.m. How many physical hours, how many people would it need to cover that shift, just like Melissa explained. The idea that we can identify every minute of the day of every police officer is a different question. And we can identify all the general tasks. That's what's being represented here. And we could put that against the fact that we have, officers putting in 3 full-time or 1 full-time officer in a given year. But that's to say that you want to know how each and every minute of a police officer time is spent in a day is a very different thing. And I don't really think that's what you're asking.
No, that's not what I intended to ask, but it would be nice to have a general idea. And I don't think it's unheard of, at least, in other professions, for people to kind of keep track of how much time they're spending on various activities and progress and projects. That's how you develop a job description.
They do record that. They put in, they report on their activities every day, but they don't, to what level? I mean, they're reporting incidences that they have to move forward to the court. They'll spend more time reporting on that. If they're being called here and there, they log where they go. So there is a detail of all their activity. It's just how much is necessary for this committee.
Right, and then there's the other thing too, is that, they may be doing some paperwork for court and they get an emergency call, then they're off doing that for 4 hours. So there's so much overlap in all these duties that to record.
I mean, it would be certainly interesting to know, for example, how much time the administrative work takes if you were going to consider hiring a part-time administrator, like there are specific things that it might be interesting to know how much time was required to do them.
Oh, I agree. I just don't know. I mean, I have worked as a full-time employee of a company doing clinical research where I was not expected to record how much time I spent on each task that I did. They were just happy if I completed my tasks in a reasonable time. I've worked as a consultant where I have to, it's not like lawyers. We don't charge for every 10 minutes, but it's close to that. You have to keep track of where all your time goes because you're charging your clients for that time. And believe me, if you could do it the first way rather than the second way, you really would like to do that, because keeping track of every minute you put in on something is a royal pain in the bosom.
I don't disagree with you, Cheryl. I've been in the position of doing it myself. All right, so we were on safety. Did we finish with safety?
Safety is the last one.
Yep, and we're done with that one.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So say a person in town dials dispatch directly. Is that not a 911 call? So
That's a dispatch call.
That's a dispatch call.
Yeah,
And
because
so
it may not be an emergency.
And it might not be, yeah. So some of the logging of things, people might not just call our town office directly. They might call dispatch directly, and that would be prompted by the little directory we have. That's what it says. You can call dispatch. So,
And like I had said to Cheryl, we haven't always had 911.
Right.
So some people have that number memorized and
mhm.
can recall faster than 911. So
625-8200.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So, there's that too. Okay, I guess we have some questions to ask Kristen to help us out with the next time. So we'll make sure we put this on our agenda, Becky, for Kristen to help out a little bit on this.
But to me, the big take home from this is that more than half of the police incidents of things that they do, we can't say time because we don't have time here, is put in what is essentially preventive work, keeping our town safe as opposed to trying to figure out what happened after something bad happened. And to me, that's really important.
Proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. That's a really important take home out of this.
I think when we look at the staff levels, we also will find out that there's vacation time, sick time. And so the coverage is for more than straight ahead cover our town for 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That's why you need part-timers as well.
Okay. All right, the next thing on the agenda, I believe, was the budget. Thank you. All right, so let me bring it up on the screen. I know I emailed it to all of you, but I will bring it up on the screen.
Cheryl, do you have that?
Thank you.
I'm gonna share screen. Okay. Can everybody see that on their screen?
Can you make it bigger?
Yes, I can make it bigger, but we all can Zoom ourselves too. If you go up into your Zoom and you have, I'm sharing my screen, so I can't do it, but at the top, it'll say you can change the ratio yourself as well. But I'll bring it up here.
It's under view options, the green
I,
thing on the.
I can't do that because I'm on an iPad, but I
I'm sorry.
understand.
I'll try to make it as big as I can, and I can scroll.
Thank you.
Is that better, Melody? Yep, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so this is information of the police budgets from 2010, July 2010 to July, this current budget year. So this front one will change as we get expense reports, and I'll keep it up to date as we get them. So if you look down at the total police budget, which is this line right here. Can everybody see my mouse? Right there?
Yeah.
The total police budget. This gives you the amount of the columns above. And it's been fairly consistent with 2 to 3% of our entire budget. Basically since 2010 or 11, fiscal year 11. So we haven't
Question.
had, yes.
Sorry, is that of the entire budget, including the regional school? I mean, or is it just the
So-
town administrative budget?
So the total budget, the total police budget line is just the police items. The total operating budget, which is down a little further, you'll see where my mouse is right here. This is the total for the entire town, all of it, with what we actually spent those years.
But is it possible to get a percentage of that doesn't include school?
I can do that. I hadn't thought of that.
I'm just curious because the school is a kind of a given, and I'm just thinking about what it actually costs, what the percentage is when we're actually running the town itself.
So percentage minus regional school or both the elementary and the regional?
Yeah, both.
Both schools, okay.
One thing that Kristen said is that pretty much across the state, that number of 3% is police budgets as part of the total annual budget. So
And I do,
that's comparing,
Well,
that is.
Suzie, this is just a curiosity question for me.
Well, you can-
I also will have
You
a
can count-
spreadsheet
you
with
can
other
make-
towns
yeah.
too. I'm accumulating them and I'm getting them from other town administrators. So I'll
And
have
you
comparisons.
can do it yourself.
Then Melody, the expense reports you get every couple of weeks has that data. You could do that.
You're right. You're right. I don't mean to take up time on this. You're right.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
So FY19, there's the two values for police chief salary. What's going on with that?
So that was the year that Tom retired. And so the chief's line was not fully spent because he had retired. And we had an officer in charge for those months, and wages were paid out of the police wages expense line. So I wanted to show what we actually did, which is the first number, 39,298, and then what we had budgeted, which was the 76,489. So those
Is it-
two numbers were
Go
what
ahead.
we actually spent and then what was budgeted. If you look up above, it has actual / budgeted, and those two numbers follow that for the salary for the chief and also for the total police.
Okay, and so in FY21, we kind of had the same situation. And the 63,654 doesn't reflect what was actually spent on the chief's salary. It was like 45,000, I believe, something like that.
This was the actual from the expense report. I'll have to go back and look at that. But
See,
we
I
had
think-
hired a,
Yeah, because Dan left in fiscal
He left in 2021. He left in
Fiscal
March.
2021, so I think that's,
No, he left in March. Oh,
yeah, he left in March, so
March.
3 months.
so yes, I can do that again. I'll do that on that one too.
Yeah, so Mike is right.
Yeah,
It's a similar situation, but it's not.
21. I'm sorry, I did pick Tom, because that was the one that.
That was an obvious.
That was an obvious one. So I'll do that with the split. I'll do the same thing. I'll show what we budgeted, what was actually spent.
So what's there right now is what was budgeted.
Yeah.
So Susie, what you're saying is that 3%, across something in the neighborhood of 3% is standard for small towns?
That's what Kristen said at that meeting.
Yeah.
Typical.
I'm surprised it's that low.
It was a good point. That's, when I was putting this together, I had thought too, was I didn't realize how small the budget was for the police department.
Well, I knew that because,
But I hadn't looked at it in this way. You know,
yeah,
I looked at the numbers, but I had not sat and added them up and thought about it.
having been
Good
on
exercise.
a finance committee in another town, I knew that, you know, something in the neighborhood of 200, 250,000 is a reasonable amount. We had, I think, it's interesting because Shirley has 6,500, or at least when I left there, about 6,500 residents. I think we also had a chief, 3 full-time and a couple part-time people. I think that's all we had. But Shirley is not any bigger than Shutesbury. Might actually have a smaller physical footprint. But there's just more people. And of course, there's a huge prison there, but they have their own people.
That's true.
By the hundreds, it seems like.
So I will correct this number. What did I open? I opened up the Excel sheet. No, I didn't. I opened up mine. Right, so I will do that number. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else you'd like to see on here?
That's a lot of work. Thank you.
Yes, it is a lot of work.
Sorry, I didn't catch the other here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, I was in auto mode by the time I got to those other ones, so. No
The
other
notes
questions?
about the staffing being vacant and stuff like that, we would, you know, that seems to be a reoccurring thing.
I
It's
couldn't
not-
remember prior years. work.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but, and there's, you know, been effort to recruit and stuff, but it does seem to be at least 2 pieces down seems to be. 2 officers down seems to be what's happening since
Oh,
2018.
Becky, I did make that
If
note
that's
here.
the case, how do we cover from 7 to 11? Do people work overtime? Or do we have more time for the part-timers?
Probably, I don't
Yes,
know.
about the first question.
Because I would think having people work overtime would be really expensive because don't they get paid time and a half?
Everyone but your chief, because, yeah, right, yeah,
Chief is exempt, I assume.
yeah, salary.
I missed what Susie said there. Could you,
Noticing that, I was noticing that in 2018 to now, we have had 2 or 3 positions unfilled. That's not the ideal, but it's something to consider. Why is this happening and what should we think about it?
well, that's, you know, it's interesting that you bring that up because some of those vacancies have been from officers that we've sent to the full-time training academy that have come back and then have not stayed with us very long. So when you're asking the question, you know, what's going on with that, I think that aspect of our police department probably, we probably need to take a look at that.
Yeah, I don't think it's just the police department, I mean, if they can get paid more someplace else, they're gonna leave. That's probably a large part of the reason why they leave.
Well, we had a sergeant that got additional pay based on that reason, and he didn't stay either. So I'm not so sure if it's just a pay aspect of working in Shutesbury.
I disagree with you, Michael. Just because he got a raise here doesn't mean he couldn't get more money someplace else.
The detail on that, I think you talked about Tom Hudak, who was a sergeant in, started in 2018. And he was offered a job at UMass for $75,000 a year. The town increased his pay, so he was making close to 50. So even when we did our best, we were way out of the park for a person with a young family to consider.
And the benefits at UMass are better too. Yeah, we couldn't compare those.
So I think having raised our rates to some extent has helped us keep some people longer than they would have. It's just a balance. You have to bring in people that are here because of aspects of Shutesbury or a small town. And finding those people has been hard to do, but it's something I think we're seeing Kristen really key into.
Well, she
And
clearly
work at.
feels that way. So-
Yeah, because she feels that way and she can express that, and people who also feel that way are responding. And she's getting calls from people wanting to work there.
In a department, we've had turnover a lot in the last 4 years. And when leadership has turnover, some people will leave when leadership changes.
Yep.
So that also attributes to some of this too.
I think
Well,
this is part of our discussion that we need to, keep thinking about. It's not, we have to look at the sort of whys and the big picture. We've had a lot of details tonight, but it's contributing to a picture for sort of the overview.
Well, I just want to go back on this a little bit of, trying to create a work environment that's appealing to people that want to work in a small town. And I don't, part of the aspect of working in a small town is you're not going to get paid as much. And I'm not expert on human nature, but I have a hard time with someone who's going to say, "Oh, I left a position in a larger town making more money because I want the environment of small town Shutesbury." It just doesn't connect with me. So there's probably something else going on there. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to stay open to thinking about that.
Yeah, I'd appreciate you staying open.
Mike, we've all heard Kristen say a number of times that she would much prefer working here and does much prefer working here to working in a larger city situation or a larger town. And I don't think any of us have any issues with Kristen's work and who she is, just because she's made that decision.
Well, we've also had two homegrown officers, Sean Sawicki and Marcus Johansson, who are, they're born and raised here and everything. And, this is their hometown and they've moved on. So
maybe they just needed more money. Sometimes you have to make that decision.
They have to do what's right for them.
Younger.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have kids.
And that's what Marcus said. He was very explicit in his exit interview, was he got a lot more money in Greenfield.
And a gym.
And a gym.
That's what we need.
Oh, we have mountains, we have hills, you can run up and down them.
Oh, boy.
Nature's
Sweat.
Yeah. Okay, was there any other, I'll correct that and resend it. Any other information anyone would like to see on here or an additional sheet I can pull from this one into another one? I know Melody asked a question that should be pretty easy to do on here. No, yes, no. I'll have another one with those surrounding towns and a few other towns budgets. They've emailed them and I've accumulated them. So I can get those put together so we can compare with other towns. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing screen because I have to look at it. I'm not used to using one screen. We're on to the survey. Oh dear, and I can bring that up.
And this is number 5, right?
Yep, we're on number 5.
Okay, so we can fix that in the heading because I'm gonna get mixed up if I don't.
Yeah, the heading said number 4.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry,
telling
I went
you.
and changed all of the things that we
You
talked
did
about.
a lot, yes, you did a lot. I just want to
Didn't-
make sure we're all
Didn't
looking
even
at
look
the
at the
same
heading.
one.
Oh, I didn't.
Yes, it's number 5.
I can pull it up. I got it on the screen. So
For you? What's your?
yeah. Can I share?
I think
Yeah,
we
can
did
share.
in here on this one.
I'll do it.
Move your
One
column,
second.
Yeah.
Yep, draft
Got
file.
it? Thanks. Now we can see this one. So I'm gonna make it clean.
Oh, I can't get rid of them. Oh, they can still see.
We can see, yeah. Okay.
All right, so the changes. In number 1, I put the word ever in after family on the first line.
And I think we were gonna eliminate prefer not to say, weren't we gonna take that out?
I
Just not that one.
think that one we have
Just
to
not
leave
on
it
that one, okay.
because we're asking them what their interactions have been with the police. So I think we should.
Although this
No.
is anonymous, right? We wouldn't know.
It's anonymous, except if it's done by email, it's not really anonymous.
We're gonna do me.
We're not going to have an email option?
We talked about some problems with email option. So I guess let's not talk about that until we get to.
Yeah, let's get through this
Okay.
person.
Okay. I don't think there were any changes to the second question or the third question.
Can't believe we can do it.
Don't remember. if
On
there were
the
changes.
third one, what, do we talk about why it's an emergency call? I mean, is that like just considered a life-threatening call? Is that what emergency would be then?
We're not defining it because I think we decided that emergency means something different to everybody. And so we just have to leave it that way. Because if somebody thinks something is an emergency, if it's an emergency to that person, we want to know how quickly they want to have a response.
Okay.
I don't remember whether there were any changes to question 4.
Yeah, you added in, it used to say, do you think it's important to have 24-hour local police coverage? And that's why it's changed.
Oh, that's right. We
Currently, we
changed it.
have.
Yeah.
Do you
I
think this
changed
is
it to
adequate?
say what we have and ask if they felt that was adequate.
I think it might be good to spell out the word 7 because you've got a lot of numbers in that one. And I mean, including number 4. So 7 days a week, I think could be 7. Just-
Okay.
That's a suggestion.
Okay. Number 5, we didn't change the question, we changed all the responses.
On
Somehow or
number 5, I'm still a little concerned about this one because of the options. And, you know, I asked a few people I know about this question, whether they would understand what another option is. And a number of them said they would have no idea what another option is.
So then they
So,
don't have, they prefer another option. That's there in case somebody has an idea that they want to put in.
So were we considering putting information in the cover letter that would be somewhat specifying?
Yes.
and so how are we coming up with the cover letter? What's the process for getting that completed?
Somebody writes it and then we bat it around in the meeting.
I'll take a stab at it.
Good, because I didn't want to do that.
You can check my grammar.
Yes, I'm
I think
gonna.
it's-
All right, so that's a task that needs to be assigned then, right?
Yeah, Melissa
She just
just
I just said I'd
volunteered.
take a stab at it. I'd get a draft done at least to start. thought
Okay,
provoking.
Sorry, I missed that.
And then I said to Cheryl, she can correct her grammar.
Many years of editing,
Yeah.
many years.
May I offer a suggestion that we could just maybe put a little note on the other option for people to see the cover letter? Then it would be just really clear what we were asking there. And it might make people read the cover letter who would otherwise not have.
Yeah.
Good
Good
point.
So prefer another option, see cover letter, and then why?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Did we add 6? I don't,
No, we just changed the numbers to fix it.
okay. And then 7, I added in various people's suggestions.
Go to view.
On
Go to
mine-
view, at the top. No.
I'll let them fix something here.
I have a couple of suggestions for 7.
Okay,
That have to do with what people sometimes do when they have community policing model. One is volunteer police patrol.
That right along with the pot?
No, they actually have people that volunteer to walk around their neighborhood.
oh, I really think that's a bad idea, and I really don't want to put it here as a question. Something.
Why is, I'm interested, why is that?
Because you really want to have people with no training walking around your neighborhood deciding what they should call the police about?
No, not at all. I think that Kristen would provide great training for people. And I think it would improve, I think in community policing neighborhoods, it really improves relationships with the police and also relationships with neighbors.
Well, then, isn't that part of civilian training sessions?
No.
I don't think so.
She explained civilian training sessions were teaching people about aspects of the law they might not be familiar with. And I think she also mentioned like court issues and laws regarding motor vehicles and stuff like that.
I think she also mentioned self-defense and those are like a rad,
Rad,
or things like that.
I think that
Okay.
one could use a little clarification. I'm not sure what civilian training would be. I think it's interesting what she was talking about, like the specifics, I think are really interesting and might provide people with
Okay.
a better idea of what we're asking.
I'll get information from her as to how to clarify that. So what you're saying is a volunteer neighborhood patrol, and then something about following training in how to do that.
Yeah, like train volunteer police patrol.
We used to have,
Tell-
they used to
think
have
it's
that in
called-
New York City. It was called the Volunteer Auxiliary Police.
Really?
They had uniforms and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, they provided them with training and they stood on street corners and,
They had uniforms. They didn't have guns though. That was the only thing they couldn't carry.
but they were a preventative presence there.
I have to say, I'm really uncomfortable with that. I sure wouldn't want it.
Well, we should ask then and see if other people would feel similarly.
Okay, volunteer,
Trained volunteer,
train volunteer
auxiliary.
auxiliary
yeah,
patrol?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't that like a crime watch neighborhood? I mean, isn't that
Yeah.
what that is, where people
No,
just,
those were
Yeah, like
people,
the guy that shot that poor black kid in Florida.
no, these were people that were actually trained by the police that had uniforms that looked like New York City police uniforms. And it was extensive training. And I actually thought about doing it at one time.
That guy that shot the black kid in Florida was also trained and wearing a uniform.
Well, that was a very different police department with a very different purpose than what we're expecting from our police department in Shutesbury, I think.
We're not advocating for it either. I mean, it's just an idea to include, I think, right, Mary Jo?
Yeah,
And how would you have them patrolling? In cars or walking?
walking.
In Shutesbury?
In Shutesbury?
Yeah, it doesn't really fit a rural model. I mean, in a more urban model, it's a little.
Well, I guess
more
around
realistic, but-
around Lake Wyola, it feels like it would work. And then that's my setting. So that's what I'm reacting out of. But I mean, it might not be appropriate for everywhere.
The other effort that's been made in Shutesbury was by the Board of Health and the fire department. Right?
Yep,
That was,
yep.
and they tried to interest people in neighborhood connecting, so that if there was some sort of emergency, there'd already be a neighborhood network so that people could respond together to a power outage or whatever. So one of the things that I had suggested that I didn't explain well enough was, I feel like the police can support community network activities such as what the Board of Health did, community cleanup. PTO is a community network. The SAC and the church are community networks. So somehow getting the police more aware and in touch and supporting those community activities. That Board of Health network neighborhood is a huge effort, and it has had a little success, but it's one of those things that if people understood what it was, they might feel it might link better to the volunteer auxiliary trained patrol. Just the sense that if there's an emergency, you don't have to wait for the police to arrive. You can have your neighbors in tune with what kind of responses they can support each other with.
I think, at least from my experience in the 3 years that I've lived here, we do that. Like when we have a power outage, usually my neighbor across the street and I meet at the street and say, are you out too? And who's gonna call the power company?
Right.
And
And
that's
there's
what your neighbors do.
some neighborhoods are much less physically close. And
I am
so,
not in a close neighborhood.
oh, I thought you were down at the lake.
No, I'm not at the, sorry.
Can I ask a question about question 7? Also, there's a comment section at the end of that. Is that just for question 7 or is that for the whole survey?
No, it's for the whole, it's for any comment they have to make. I don't know how to, maybe just put a line across or something.
Yeah, or just, you could just put
What
like
does that-
general survey comments, I mean, or something.
Yep,
Yeah, general survey comments or any additional comments you'd like the committee to know.
Yeah. But I think it needs to be clear that it's not just about question 7.
yeah.
Good catch.
I would like to work on some of the wording in number 7. So I wanted to have So let's see, we'll number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On number 5, I would like it to say support community networks, but not next door Shutesbury, because that is not an official town
Okay,
mechanism for communicating. And what I was intending when I meant community networks, it's entities that act within the town. So the church, the SAC,
Okay,
the
so-
PTO, the Board of Health.
e.g. church,
Mhm.
SAC, PTO,
Serious.
It's over on Baker Road.
oh, serious,
Serious.
SIRIUS, right?
Yes, yeah.
Wait, Susie, I'm confused. Do you mind clarifying, like, when you say next door is not an official town, but the church and Sirius Community aren't official town networks either, right?
They are not, but next door is an entity that the town does not use as a voice. The official town entities do not use it as a voice.
The Board
So
of
I don't
Health-
know what else,
The Board of
Other
Health
way.
uses it,
do what?
the Board of Health uses it.
They give announcements.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
the
it-
library uses it.
It looks
Yeah.
like it's official when the Board of Health puts an announcement on there to talk about that.
I have a suggestion that we separate out and interact using social media, and don't specify next door, but just say social media. Because the police department does use Facebook. But that might not always be, it might not always be Facebook.
A separate one would be interact using social media and just leave that open.
Yeah, in, whatever way is appropriate to them, they
Okay.
could decide.
Yeah, I refuse to sign up on Facebook. So whenever anybody has something on Facebook, I can't see it. So that's not.
Well, I'm not on Twitter or anything like that either, but that doesn't mean that people shouldn't be allowed to use it.
No, it doesn't, but it shouldn't be their only means of communication.
Well, it might be though. I mean, you
Well,
don't know.
I just want to comment that in Obama's recommendations for police forces nationally, it recommended that they interact on social media. It's a way that people relate, especially since COVID. It provides a way of communication that otherwise would not be there, and a very important way of communication for lots and lots of people.
And I attended an MMA session where one of the larger police departments, I think it might have been Lexington, was talking about the social media traps that you can fall into. And that they started to use social media a little bit, and then they had, it's so time consuming that they had to have a full-time person assigned to it. And even with that, it's very difficult to respond and be timely. So you really have to evaluate your town's capacity for interacting with different, with different social media sources. And you want to make sure that you can, like right now, our Facebook page gets likes, but I don't think there's a lot of, it's only used when an event happens and not on a daily basis, which works for a small department, but it varies. And it's a very big issue. And I think you're right. I think we should have one category that's just about social media, separate from the community networks, because Susie's description was of entities.
Yeah, I'd add the social media. But I agree, it shouldn't be the only communication tool. That's it, that's all I had for comment. Susie, you had some other ones you said. you wanted to-
I guess I felt like it needed to be more specific, but now I can let that go. But I felt instead of interact with other town departments, I wanted it to be get to know employees, volunteers, other departments, so that it had a sort of a specificness to it. And then the same thing with the school, it's the visits with the students, the parents, the staff, and the regular bus patrol. It just felt a little bit more specific, but we can go with the language that's here too.
Susie, for the other town departments, are you saying maybe define that as interact with other Shutesbury town departments? Would that hone it a little bit better without adding?
Well, I just saw it as employees and volunteers. Sort of the idea that we are in this together, that we have this joint effort. And I think that there's probably some volunteers and employees that should get to know the police too. It's a two-way street. And if we can't take a lot of time to do it, but I don't know that at all boards, the police ever attend. And I don't know if I've seen town announces coming from the police department. So it's just like becoming more integrated.
Kristen will be doing town announcements.
Okay.
She's been working on getting.
And so one thing I told her when we had a library open house, I happened to run into Marcus in the parking lot. And I said, we have this if you'd like to come drop by. But they didn't have the regular, they didn't have a notification process for events in town. I said, well, you could get on town announce and get those, make it more of a connected thing, which they both agreed they wanted to, but it's like, what's the mechanism? And how do you reach out and understand that you're part of that whole fabric, not just your piece?
But don't forget, but these things that we're listing here are in a question that's about community policing. I'm not sure that what you're suggesting really falls under community policing.
I would think it really does, because
Yeah,
it's
it
being
does.
aware of your community more than just your narrow job description, or it's being aware that there's a community out there and it has sort of an organic life. And how do you get to know that? How do you check in on that? And that was what I was seeing here.
Okay.
And I can envision whatever the answers are here, the police would take and use that to figure out how to communicate all this.
Mhm.
But I think the general nature that you use to describe things works for this format for the survey. I appreciate all the sensitivity, but I think that would be better in a different place. Because people have a lot to take in just with this amount of information.
But one of the things that we talked about more than once, I'm sure, is that this is not just a tool to get information from people, it's a tool for people to learn about what goes on with the police department. And so we need to keep that in mind as we're talking about these questions. But I think it is a problem, because when we're talking here, we get to clarify things, and then we put down the endpoint of our clarifications, and it may not read the same way to the people who are reading it, but we have to be aware of that.
So are we ready to make this the survey?
Well, do you want me to incorporate these things?
But if we, like, as amended? Could we
No,
vote
I'm
it?
not ready to vote on this till the cover letter is done.
And I'd also like to get Kristen's view on some of these too. So
Yeah.
maybe one more draft with a draft cover letter. And then we could vote them separately. We don't have to vote on the cover letter the same night we vote on the survey, right?
I
And then-
actually have a question, an additional question that I'd like to suggest. I think that it would be very interesting to consider the possibility of having a community relations committee for the police department. This is also a part of community policing in many towns. If you really want to do community policing well, there need to be people in the community that are intentionally involved with the police department. And so my thought is, if we asked a question about whether people would want to make a commitment to be involved with that, whether they would be interested in volunteering for that, maybe we could identify some people who would potentially be helpful to Kristen in terms of the community policing effort. Might want to run it by Kristen, of course, but it's community policing is a two-way street. I mean, the police can reach out, but the community also has to reach out and take some responsibility for providing feedback and oversight.
Oversight would be hard.
Yeah, I think oversight is not appropriate, but certainly,
Well, I think in certain towns, oversight is entirely appropriate, particularly if, I mean, I think this is nothing related to Shutesbury. Like, I think that Shutesbury police right now are fantastic. But particularly in places where you have issues with police brutality or other kinds of concerns like that, or if the police department just isn't doing the kind of job that the community would like to have them do, there needs to be a mechanism whereby the community can express that. And a lot of times, if people have a grievance, and this is reading that I've done from, police departments in larger towns, because obviously that's the majority of the writing that gets done. But when people have a grievance, they have to go to the same police department that is causing them the problem. And that's very intimidating. And it's not, I don't think it's a very good way to handle a grievance. So towns who feel that way have established, and cities also have established, some sort of civilian oversight for their police departments, just so that they have that additional level of accountability in case something were to go wrong. Now, I think in the case of Shutesbury, that kind of accountability would probably provide people who would be speaking about everything that's going right with the Shutesbury Police Department. And I think that they would potentially be community advocates for the kinds of things that Kristen might want to do. And I would really be interested in seeing if there are people that would want to participate in a way like that. And a survey like this would be a great opportunity to figure that out.
I agree with you that having a community committee, whatever you want to call it, that interacts with the police department is a really good idea. But if we use the word oversight, we're going to lose people in our police department, because it's too early to put that word in. It's enough that the police have to respond to the select board and not have a bunch of people who aren't even elected also looking over their shoulders. I wouldn't want to work under those circumstances.
So in Shutesbury, Mary Jo, right now, a day-to-day kind of some oversight is with Becky, and then the select board is also that oversight.
Well, I want to challenge you a little bit on this, because if you ever had, say, a racial incident, would a person of color feel comfortable going to an all-white select board?
Well, in this town, pretty much any committee is going to be pretty much all white.
Right, exactly.
So what difference does it make whether it's the select board or committee that someone goes to?
Well, ideally, you would recruit a representative, and probably very white sample from Shutesbury, but certainly if you wanted to deal specifically with issues of race that would potentially come up, you could be pretty intentional about making your community relations group or committee or whatever you want to make it racially diverse. You could make it diverse in whatever ways you think might be relevant to areas of discrimination or, areas of bias. And then you would have people in the community that could definitely speak to those kind of concerns and say, yeah, our police department is dealing really well with these issues. Right now, if someone were to say, I think that it's all well and good for a police department to have women and Kristen, but that may not be always the case, I think that I really respect the cities and towns that have made a decision to have some civilian oversight and intentionally representative oversight for their police departments. And as I said, it's particularly in terms of dealing with grievances that I would think it might be appropriate. I'm not saying that everybody has to agree with me. I'm just throwing it out as something that seemed like best practices from what I've been reading.
I see.
Well, and
two
it's not
hands.
like there are no people of color in Shutesbury. I mean, certainly there's a dearth, but it's not like there's nobody.
Becky and
All I was
Susie.
gonna say was, I think before you ask a question, if anybody's interested in volunteering, if you put any of this on this survey, I think the question should be, is the community interested in having a civilian-based oversight committee? Because I would not assume they are.
And I would stay away from oversight too. I
If
think
that's a scary
we would
word,
call it
probably, yeah.
an advisory committee, but not an oversight, because oversight is not what they would be doing. Oversight is the job of the town administrator and the select board.
Select board.
And I think what I think maybe something like the fire department has the firefighters association, the library has the Friends of the Library. I think that those sort of things could benefit. I think that's what you were thinking about. It's a committee that works with them, does fundraising and some other things.
No, that wasn't what I was
Well,
thinking of.
but to have, that's what I was thinking when you were saying that, I'm sorry. So that might be something that could benefit the police department, but the oversight, I do agree with Rita.
Yeah, I think oversight is
I mean, we're all struggling to try and figure out what police work is in a place where we have Kristen helping us. I can't imagine how that, constantly training new volunteers, the time that would take. And, so I think a friends of or association of, I think is
But I have a big problem with fundraising. The police department should be funded from taxes, not from fundraising.
Well, the fire department has the firefighter association that helps them with all the fundraising on the side for equipment and such.
So I feel like this piece is a next step, and I would like to not tangle this step with that step. But it could be, I understand this feels like an opportunity to go there, but I would prefer to be at this step where we're finding out enough about people's feelings about our police department services to then decide what kind of organization we're having for that department, what kind of leadership.
I have
I
a question.
agree. I agree. I don't think this is the right venue for that. I understand where you're coming from, Mary Jo, and I can see something coming out of this down the road that would be community interaction with the police department on some level. But I don't think this survey is the right place for that.
I have a question on Mary Jo's concept. I kind of get a little bit lost in the specifics of racial issues and things like that. But Mary Jo, can you refresh my memory on what the overall concept of what you're trying to present was?
Well, basically, kind of trying to remember, it was a while ago that I did this reading and research. But and maybe oversight isn't the right word to use. But it is my understanding that there were cities and towns that intentionally put together a group of people who were representative of the community, who took it upon themselves to educate themselves about what their police department did, to know about the needs of their community, and to provide the police with information specific to those community needs. And also to kind of act as a was just sort of to act like a go-between, to kind of represent the police to the community and the community to the police. And particularly when you're talking about community policing, that kind of involvement is important because it helps to build an understanding of what police do among the people who are residents. And it also helps the police when they're doing investigations, for example, that they potentially have friends in the community or people in the community who have taken upon themselves to be a little bit more involved, a little bit more educated than the average person might be. So different towns do different things, but that's how it fits into the community policing model in towns that are doing it. And there are other aspects of it too. I specifically looked into, because when I first got interested in this, I was interested in the race issue. And I was interested in how people monitored whether or not the police were involved in police brutality. And there was a lot of comment about the fact that people who have been injured by police department will not feel comfortable going into that police department to file a grievance. And so you can have especially in larger communities, a fair amount of police brutality going on that you would never know about because people are just too afraid to come forward, when the only place that they can come forward is to the supervisor or the person who was brutalizing them. And so they established a way that there was a community group involved where grievances could be handled. That didn't involve knocking on the police department door. And to me, just in terms of the way that you structure an organization, that makes a lot of sense. That doesn't necessarily apply directly to our small town, and we need to think about what would fit us if we want to do anything like that. But I didn't want to let the opportunity go by, especially when we're talking about the way that the community and the police interact. I wanted to bring that up,
Well, I think the part that that really stuck with me of what you just said is the liaison between the police and the community, and kind of a conduit for passing information back and forth, because other than this this police study group, I don't really have a lot of contact with the police, and I don't get a lot of information about what they're doing. They have a Facebook page that is, maybe some things are there, maybe there's not. I don't do Facebook very much, but just to have an avenue to know what the police are up to, what what challenges they're facing in any particular time frame, and vice versa, going the other way between the community. I think that's a good idea. Whether or not now's the time to delve more into it, I'm not sure, but I think that's a reasonable concept.
Mary Jo, I think one of the things that you brought up is that if you have a grievance against the police, you have to take it to the police. And in a small town like this, that's not the case. There are other people in the town that you can go to. You don't have to go to the police.
And all of our home phone numbers are listed.
Yes, exactly.
We get calls.
Yep.
We already do.
Okay, so seeing how we've talked about all this, and it's now kind of passed a little bit, not too much, but passed. Shall we schedule our next meeting, which I think we kind of already did?
Yes, we did.
And I'm gonna look at it because the 23rd, excuse me, the 23rd of
December, yes.
Is that?
That's 5:45. Is everybody going to be in town? Nobody's going away for Christmas?
Well, yeah, because the 21st has to be 5:45, so yes, that one would be good. I'm in the office that day.
Oh, right,
Both
right,
days.
21st.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
The next week, however, no office.
So is everyone going to be in town for that meeting?
Good. Stop sharing your
Available.
screens.
Sorry,
Okay.
stop sharing.
Perfect. Now we see everybody. Will everybody be available either virtually or in town on the 23rd?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, okay, all right, so we'll do 5:45, and a couple things I had for agenda items, was we want to ask Kristen a little bit, some of our questions maybe with, the spreadsheet. I'll bring a draft cover, I'll send a draft cover letter, updated budget and expenses, we can look at that, I'll bring the other town budgets, draft 6 of the survey, and then talk about the communication and how we might go about implementing that to the public, maybe, what was?
What communication? The survey?
Yeah,
Mailing it out,
Communicating
blah,
it.
blah, blah.
yeah, to everybody.
And I would like to have a sense of what other tasks, how we can define some tasks to complete our mission. So I believe we will probably need to interview or do something with Scott Minkler to see what's happened there. And
Who's Scott?
he's
I don't think we
hire.
need,
Well, it's a model. I didn't hear
I
what,
think we can get the information from the town administrator.
okay.
That's perfect.
I'm on a meeting.
What was that?
About the model.
I'll call
that's
you
going
back.
In Wendell and Leverett. And so I'd like to spend next meeting brainstorming what other tasks we can break out so that we can keep moving forward on the mission.
Did we finish up the discussions on the different models?
We can glance at the glossary again. Do you want to
Well,
glance
I
at
think
it?
I'd like to see what we ended up with.
Oh, yeah, I'll type that.
I'm sorry, what is that gonna be?
That was,
The glossary of models, we never saw a finished product of what we ended up with.
I'll distribute, I did type it up, I'll distribute it. And we can just glance at that again real quick. We'll glance at it with the cover letter anyway. We're going to define a little bit in the cover letter. Other tasks lists so we can move forward. And communication related to the survey. Okay,
Was there anything between other town budgets and the survey communication?
Just
survey
getting,
and communication.
just getting the,
Yes.
the version 6.
Yeah, and our other town budgets and the, yeah,
Just wanted
and then
to
other
see
tasks. So I have feeling out of it with them.
Other tasks, will be at the end, right?
So we ought to start thinking about how we're going to put together a report and how we want to structure it and who's going to do what parts of it. And
I think we will do that, but I think there's still some work to be done before we
Right,
get to that.
but we need to start thinking about that to make sure we're not leaving anything out when we're finishing up the work.
Mhm.
That's when, when I'm doing a big project, about 2/3 of the way through, I start structuring what my report will look like, because that's a good way to remind ourselves of what we haven't done.
All right, anybody else want to add anything to those items or future items?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we're talking like agenda item, like for tonight was survey updates, communication and feedback with the public. Are those two different topics?
Yeah, we
Survey
have to
updates?
figure out how we're gonna have to figure out how we're gonna communicate it, mail it out, such, and then how we're gonna gather all that back once we've done that, what our process will be.
Okay, all right. So that's the physical, how the survey is going to get out and come back and tabulated. Okay.
Yeah, logistics, communication / logistics. And then logistics once it comes back. Anything else?
Just if Becky sends me the recording for tonight, I'll do the minutes again.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Based on the comment about people from Shutesbury and New Salem having some conversations in August, I've heard it mentioned several times, the relationship between Wendell and Leverett. Would it be appropriate to have a little bit of fact finding about how that's going, how it's structured, whether or not a similar thing would be appropriate, since that's like right next door?
Yeah, that's just what Susie brought up. And I said, we'll pull together some information, get some reports from Leverett and from Wendell.
Thanks. It's a little bit hard to hear sometimes over here.
I think it's hard and it's hard when we keep our masks on too. Sorry.
Just a question on that process then. So that's the Leverett Wendell model. Are we going to be getting any more in-depth on shared chief model or anything like that? I mean, there's the Hardwick New Braintree model that has been in effect for a while. We could, are we going to query them or anything like that?
You want me to contact their TA, their administration in Hardwick?
Those sounds are so much
I
bigger
know,
than
I
this.
know the woman who put together the agreements. I can talk to Sherry
Okay.
first.
Becky will talk to the person that put together the
Braintree
agreement.
isn't little.
What's that?
Were they shared or were they region?
New Braintree, not Braintree. Oh, okay. New Braintree's little. Yeah. And rural.
That was shared chief, not a regional
Yeah, not regional.
police. I don't know if anybody around here has done regional.
No,
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay. We have to do a roll call vote. I'll do this one first. Susie,
Mosier, aye.
Carol,
Hayden, aye.
Makepeace, O'Neill, aye. Mike,
Bitzky, aye.
Mary Jo,
Thompson, aye.
Melody,
Chartier, aye.
Rita.
Carol, I.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See ya.
It'd be interesting if you end up having another group